David always wondered why the hallway floor of his cottage felt colder than the rest of the house. One day, while fixing a leaky faucet, he noticed a loose floorboard. His curiosity piqued. He pried it open and discovered something unexpected, a hidden staircase leading down into the dark. Without hesitation, David grabbed a flashlight and descended the stairs. But before we dive into the story, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our exciting stories. The air grew colder as he reached the bottom. Shining his light around, he saw a small, dusty room filled with old furniture and cobwebs. However, something was strange. While most of the room was covered in dust, some spots were clean, as though brushed away. David thought it might have been rats or mice, but when he noticed human-like footprints among the dust, his heart raced. Suddenly, David heard noises coming from upstairs. He rushed to the stairs but saw a shadowy figure moving through his hall. Before he could react, the person replaced the floorboard, trapping David in the hidden room. Panic surged through him, but he tried to stay calm. Why was there a secret room under his house, and who had just locked him in? David quickly realized he needed to find another way out. Searching the room, he found a cabinet hiding the entrance to a tunnel. A breeze flowed through it, explaining the cold sensation he had always felt in his hall. Crawling through the narrow, dark tunnel, David's heart pounded. Who had been living under his house? And what did they want? David's fear grew as he considered the possibility that the mysterious figure had been sneaking into his home without him ever knowing. After crawling for what felt like hours, he finally saw light at the end of the tunnel. He emerged outside, relieved but unsure of where he was. Determined to confront the intruder, David blocked the tunnel entrance and made his way back to the house. Once back, he saw movement inside through the window. Someone was in his house. He had to act fast. David hid behind a bush, watching the figure inside his house. Unsure of the intruder's intentions, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Armed with a large stick, David quietly approached his front door. To his surprise, it was unlocked. As he crept inside, he noticed barefoot footprints on the floor. He carefully followed them, hearing noises from the kitchen. When David peered into the kitchen, he saw the intruder with his back turned, making a sandwich with David's food. His anger flared, but he managed to control it. Clearing his throat, he sternly demanded, "Who are you? And what are you doing in my house?" The intruder froze, but refused to turn around. David repeated the demand, his voice louder this time, but still, the figure didn't move. Sensing David's hesitation, the intruder suddenly sprinted past him, catching him off guard. David tried to grab him, but the intruder was too quick. In the chaos, the intruder vanished into the house. David stood in the doorway, scanning the trees outside to see if the intruder had fled, but there was no sign of him. He shouted, "Yeah, you better run!" hoping to scare the person away for good. Feeling victorious, David headed back inside, confident that the ordeal was over. But little did he know, the intruder was still hiding in the house. As David checked the living room for signs of the intruder, he noticed that the hall door, which he had left open, was now shut. Alarmed, he quietly approached the door, pressing his ear against it. Faint noises from within confirmed his worst fears. The intruder was still inside, possibly hiding in the secret room. David grabbed his stick again, bracing himself for a confrontation. With a deep breath, David swung open the door and rushed into the hall, but no one was there. Confused, he checked the windows, but they were locked. Then he heard a noise from beneath him. The intruder had likely gone back down into the hidden room. David chuckled, realizing he had unintentionally trapped the intruder underground. David Now realizing he had trapped the intruder in the secret room, placed a heavy chair over the hatch to ensure no escape. He called the police, explaining the situation, but they told him it could take an hour for them to arrive. Impatient and determined to handle the situation himself, David decided to take action. He hurried back to the tunnel entrance outside, crawled through the narrow passage, and soon reached the secret room. Inside, he heard the intruder muttering to himself. Gathering his courage, David swung the cabinet door open, startling the man inside. The intruder screamed, raising his hands in fear, pleading, "Please don't shoot me, sir!" David, holding only a stick, calmed the man down. As the tension eased, David could finally see him clearly. The man was dirty, barefoot, and dressed in tattered clothing. He looked defeated and harmless. David asked him why he had been living there and how he had discovered the hidden room. The man, whose name was Greg, explained that he had been homeless for a while and had stumbled upon the tunnel while seeking shelter from the rain. Hidden beneath leaves and branches, the tunnel had appeared to Greg as a hollowed tree at first. But once he crawled through, he found the hidden room and decided to stay. For him, it was a safe, dry place, far better than the streets. David could see the desperation in Greg's eyes and felt sympathy for him. Soon after, the police arrived and David guided them to the tunnel entrance. Greg was terrified of the police, but David reassured him that they wouldn't hurt him. As the police officers swarmed the room and took Greg into custody, they asked David if he wanted to press charges. After hearing Greg's story, David didn't want to cause him more trouble. He just wanted Greg to get the help he needed. A few hours later, David stood alone in the secret room, reflecting on everything that had happened. The police had taken Greg away, and the chaos of the day had finally settled. As he looked around the room, he knew he couldn't leave it in its current state. Now that he knew about the space, David decided to transform it into something he had always dreamed of, a personal man cave. First, David filled the tunnel with sand, blocking off any future access from the outside. He wanted to make sure no one could sneak in through that hidden passage again. Once that was done, he spent the next few days cleaning out the room, removing the old dusty furniture, and getting rid of the cobwebs. David's vision for the room started to take shape. He installed new carpet, refreshed the stairs, and even put in a large flat-screen TV. It was finally becoming the perfect hideaway he had always wanted. Though he had no wife or kids to escape from, he knew he would spend a lot of time in his new man cave. As for Greg, David stayed in contact with him. He made sure Greg was treated fairly by the authorities and arranged for him to stay at a local homeless shelter. Over time, Greg turned his life around. He found a job, saved up money, and eventually rented his own place. Despite everything, Greg never forgot David's kindness. One day, Greg returned wanting to repay David for the trouble he had caused. Although David initially refused the money, Greg insisted, saying it was the least he could do. David accepted the money, donating part of it to the homeless shelter where Greg had stayed. The rest of the funds went into finishing his man cave. From that day on, David never felt unsafe in his home again, and even found a sense of peace. While the experience had been unsettling, it ultimately led to the creation of his perfect retreat and a new friendship.